South Africans, ni Sodom and Gomorrah. Anina nhliziyo aninanembeza ni nunu. Bathi-ke kulungile, siyethemba ukuthi nathi uzofika ngesikhathi kusasa. Sikwazi ukuthi sihambe sombeka. Esithembayo ukuthi uzokwazi ukubheka emuva. Le politiki abeyifundisa akwazi ukuyifafaza kubantu abathile ngokuthi baqondise u-African National Congress. Yabona into ezofanele iyekwe ukuloku sikhalela abantu abamoshwa African National Congress. Kuzofanele sibe khona siulungise noma ke sesingasala sibe bangaki. Kodwa leadership ayiphele lento yokunesa abantu abasebenzisa u-African National Congress ukuwela imfula abawenza ibridge kanti bangenela ukulungisa izinto zabo. Ayiphele lento yokuthi umuntu kube clear nje ukuthi akahlangene no-ANC ufuna ibudget yama contract. Because ileyo nto ebulale u-ANC ukuthi niyawubulala nini uqobolweni bese nibuya nizokhala ngezinto enaziyo ukuthi anifanele ukuzenza nezinto ekufanele enaziyo ukuthi kufanele nizenze ningazenzi. Ake sibe yileyo African National Congress esasiyiwona. Sibe ingcenye sibe ipulse yama communities ethu. We used to be pulse of communities. We used to walk tall. Uzibuza ukuthi abantu bayangibona yini ukuthi u-ANC. Today uyazibuza ukuthi yini bangibonelana ukuthi u-ANC. Akuzenzekelanga. It's because there is some of us, there are those people abasebenzisa u-ANC ngokubona ukuthi ibona kufanele bakhuphuke bathi masebe phezulu egqumeni balikhahlele iladi angasakhuphuka u-ANC kukhuphuke bona. Kuzofanele sibuyele kuma basics. Kuzofanele ukuthi mawufuna ukuyoseva uhambe uyoseva u-ANC usungaseveka ke nawe. Kuzofanele abantu mabekhala bakwazi ukuthola mawukhethelwe esikhundleni sokuthi ube yileader, uyikhansela, uyimember eParliament, uyi-MEC, uminister, ukwazi ukutholakala mawumuntu we-ANC.
Hey everyone, welcome back to SA Daily Insight. I'm Peter, and today we're diving into two stories that have the nation talking, sparking emotions, anger, and reflection all at once. The first takes us to KwaZulu-Natal, where former Police Minister Bheki Cele's words have once again set off a wave of public outrage. And the second, it's a courtroom twist involving businessman Katiso KT Molefe, a man whose name has become synonymous with controversy, crime, and whispered corruption in South Africa's underworld. But before we get there, let's start in Pinetown, where a memorial meant to honor the late Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa turned into something else entirely. At first, the scene was somber. Dignitaries dressed in black, the ANC flags draped, and quiet gospel hymns floating through the air. You'd expect tears, tributes, maybe even moments of reflection. But instead, what captured South Africa's attention wasn't the speeches about Mthethwa's diplomatic service. It was Bheki Cele's fiery sermon from the podium. With a voice that echoed through the hall, he lashed out. Not at corruption, not at injustice, but at the people, at you and me. He accused South Africans of being heartless, of having no conscience, and he went as far as to compare the nation to Sodom and Gomorrah. Yes, Sodom and Gomorrah. Cele said the country had lost its compassion, that we had become monsters, incapable of sympathy even when a man like Nathi Mthethwa dies. It was a harsh, almost biblical rebuke, and within minutes, those words started trending. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Everyone had something to say. Some people nodded along, saying he had a point about the country's moral decay. But most, they were angry, furious even. Because let's be honest, South Africans are tired of being blamed for the corruption, the crime, and the dysfunction created by the very leaders who were supposed to protect them. When Bheki Cele said we are without conscience, many heard something else entirely. They heard a man defending another comrade accused of wrongdoing, while scolding ordinary citizens for daring to ask questions. Let's talk about why the backlash was so intense. After Mthethwa's passing, the reactions online were mixed. Some people offered condolences, but others, they remembered. They remembered the long shadow of corruption allegations that followed him. They remembered the deals, the controversies, and the perception that his career was built not just on diplomacy, but on political protection. And while his family has publicly denied any wrongdoing, they also rejected what they called disrespectful comments from the public. But Cele took that defense even further, turning grief into a weapon and criticism into sin. He spoke as if questioning the past of a public servant was immoral, as if South Africans owed unconditional sympathy to those who never showed the same in return. And in that moment, something snapped for many viewers. The frustration that's been bubbling for years about crime, unemployment, and government impunity erupted online. People said, "How dare you lecture us about conscience when criminals are roaming free, when citizens die waiting for justice, and when corruption keeps swallowing our future?" But what makes this story even more striking is the tone Cele used when speaking about the ANC itself. He said he hopes Mthethwa's political legacy will inspire ANC members to get the party on the right path again. He called out those who, in his words, use the ANC for personal gain, the ones chasing contracts, tenders, and money instead of serving the people. And to be fair, that part of his speech did resonate with some, because deep down, many South Africans want the same thing: a government that actually works, a party that remembers its mission, and leaders who stand for something beyond power. But here's the irony. When Cele warns against sympathizing with people who have damaged the ANC, many South Africans feel like that warning should include some of the very names still sitting in power today. The same names that show up in commissions, scandals, and exposés. Names that seem to survive every storm while ordinary citizens keep paying the price. Now, let's pause for a moment. Because this speech wasn't just about one man or one funeral. It's a mirror reflecting the emotional distance between the rulers and the ruled. Cele's words show a government still out of touch with public sentiment, still choosing anger over accountability. Instead of asking, why do people feel this way? The question from leaders often becomes, how dare they feel this way? And that's the tragedy here. Because when leadership becomes defensive, it stops listening. And when it stops listening, it loses its moral authority to lead. But speaking of moral authority, the next story takes us to a different kind of courtroom, where justice, corruption, and fear all collide. It's a story that reads like something out of a crime thriller, filled with luxury cars, high-profile assassinations, and whispers of a shadowy criminal network known as the Big Five. This is the story of Katiso KT Molefe, a name that's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Let's rewind a little. Katiso was arrested back in July 2024 for the murders of DJ Sumbody and his two bodyguards, Sibusiso Mokoena and Sandile Myeza. The killings shocked South Africa's entertainment scene and left fans grieving yet again. At the time, Katiso was already out on 100,000 rand bail for another murder, that of engineer Armand Swart, who was killed in April the same year. Now think about that for a moment. A man facing multiple murder charges was already out on bail when more lives were taken. And yet, somehow, the story didn't end there. Because just this past week, Katiso won his bail appeal and walked away with 400,000 rand bail on top of the earlier 100,000 rand granted by the Pretoria High Court. That's 500,000 rand in bail, and still, freedom, at least for now. Judge Brad Wanless delivered the ruling at the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg, stating that the state's opposition lacked substantial evidence. He said granting bail wouldn't violate the Criminal Procedure Act, and that the earlier denial of bail by the Alexandra Magistrates Court was a misdirection. That word, misdirection, is powerful, because in South Africa, it often feels like the entire justice system is living in a state of misdirection. How does someone linked to multiple high-profile murders, accused of being part of an organized crime syndicate, get to walk out of court time and time again? That's the question haunting so many South Africans right now. Katiso's bail conditions might sound strict on paper. He must report to the Morningside police station 3 times a week. He can't contact state witnesses, and he's confined to Gauteng, unless he's traveling to Welkom in the Free State for business, with police approval. But let's be real. To many people, it still feels like a system too lenient, too negotiable, and too easy to manipulate. This is a man reportedly linked to the Big Five, a criminal cartel allegedly involved in everything from drug trafficking to tender fraud and contract killings. Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi even mentioned Katiso's name publicly during a press briefing, warning about how organized crime has seeped into the justice system itself. That's chilling. Because when the people enforcing the law admit the system is compromised, it means ordinary citizens are living under an invisible shadow of corruption. Now let's talk about that cartel for a second, the Big Five. It's allegedly a tightly knit network of wealthy, well-connected individuals operating across provinces. Their business model? Simple. Power, money, and intimidation. Some sources describe them as a criminal enterprise disguised as legitimate businessmen. They allegedly fund assassinations, control drug routes, manipulate tenders, and bribe officials to keep their empire running smoothly. And when you look at the killings connected to Katiso, DJ Sumbody, DJ Vintos, Don Tindleni, and others, it starts to look like more than coincidence. It's a pattern of fear. Imagine what that means for artists, entrepreneurs, and even government workers. When crime and influence blend this seamlessly, the lines between legitimate success and criminal power start to blur. And when those lines blur, truth becomes dangerous. Because in South Africa today, telling the truth about crime, money, or politics can cost you your life. That's the reality this case represents. A justice system walking a tightrope between doing what's right and doing what's convenient. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Peter, why do these cases always seem to end the same way? Someone powerful or connected gets arrested. There's a media frenzy. The courts make a few bold statements. And then suddenly, there's bail, delays, and silence. It's because, at the heart of it, the fight against organized crime in South Africa isn't just about criminals. It's about systems. The systems that protect them, the systems that enable them, the systems that sometimes even benefit from them. And that's what makes Katiso's case so significant. Because it's not just one man on trial. It's the credibility of the entire justice system. So when Judge Wanless granted bail, some people called it fairness, others called it failure. But either way, it forces us to look in the mirror and ask, who really controls justice in this country? Is it the law, or is it the money behind the law? And as we wrap up today's episode, both of these stories, Bheki Cele's outburst and Katiso Molefe's courtroom victory, reveal something deeper about where South Africa stands right now. One story shows leaders who've grown defensive instead of accountable. The other shows criminals who move through the system like shadows, untouchable, unshaken, and unafraid. Together they paint a picture of a nation caught in contradiction, moral speeches from pulpits and memorials, while the streets and courtrooms tell a different truth. But maybe, just maybe, it's through facing these contradictions head-on that we begin to find our way back. Because the South Africa we want, the one we dream about, can't survive on denial or silence. It needs truth, raw, uncomfortable truth, spoken fearlessly and shared widely. And that's what we'll keep doing here on SA Daily Insight. So, what do you think? Was Bheki Cele right to call South Africans heartless? Or was it another example of leadership losing touch? And do you believe justice was truly served in the Katiso Molefe bail decision? Or is it another case of the rich walking free while justice stands still? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. Thanks for watching SA Daily Insight. I'm Peter, and I'll see you in the next one.